Sorry, your moment of calling to order was not on camera. I apologize.
Fire exits are to my left and right of council chambers. Roll call, please.
Mayor Foster. Councilmember George. Councilmember Hale.
Here.
Councilmember Hirsch.
Here.
Council President Kim Cho-Han.
Here.
Councilmember Pistonik.
Here.
Councilmember Vargas.
Here.
Borough Attorney Shaw.
Here.
Borough Administrator Hoover.
Here.
Okay, so tonight we have 3 discussion items. Terry, do you want to jump right into 810 North 2nd Avenue redevelopment project?
Sure, thanks. And Councilman Hale.
Councilman Hale.
Chime in, but essentially, with regard to 810 North 2nd Avenue, which if you may remember last year, we adopted a redevelopment plan for basically the adaptive reuse of a small lab building on North 2nd Avenue, kind of in between Cleveland and Wayside Drive. And actually I have a couple of slides I did pull up, but we've been working, and when I say we, Chris Cosenza and myself as staff have been working with the property owner now on the property toward a compliant plan, basically a plan for the site that complies with the redevelopment plan that was adopted. And we're finally at that point. And one of the things that we all discussed, there was some neighbor feedback when we adopted the plan. So we did hold a neighbor meeting where we introduced them to a team that's going to be rehabbing the property, and they presented their concepts, asked questions, and so, but coming out of that meeting, there was some feedback, but was mostly about construction management, wouldn't you say, Matt, and kind of some being sensitive to the neighbors during construction. I think they were generally comfortable with the proposal and felt like their concerns had been listened to. So with that, procedurally, the next step for them to proceed with their project, first they need to have a redevelopment agreement in place with the borough, because this is in a redevelopment area under the rehab statute, but still it's a redevelopment plan, and a redevelopment plan requires a agreement between us and the entity that's developing the property. I do have a draft of the redevelopment agreement, which I can circulate after the meeting, but when you see it, it's a very vanilla, it's basically, this is the project and you're gonna do it, and you can go to the planning board, and their next move is to go to the planning board for their site plan review. They can't do that unless there's an agreement in place with the borough. That's one of the conditions of our redevelopment plan. So what I wanted to do tonight was just kind of give you a similar presentation to what the neighbors saw, just to catch you up with where the project is. And if you're comfortable with where we are, I'd like to put a resolution together with Joe Bauman's help to authorize this redevelopment agreement. So let me just maybe make most sense to walk through the slides and then we can talk about it. Does that work, Matt?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that the meeting,
You can talk while I can find this
the meeting that we had between the redevelopment or the team doing this and the neighbors, I thought went really well. They asked good questions. They asked, they didn't come in just sort of fighting each other. They came in, I think, sort of trying to figure out, making sure everybody was heard, everybody had good thoughts and ideas, and I think it went really well. So I think that the neighbors know that it's coming. They know what it is, and I think they're pretty happy. They're okay with it. Is how I would say it. So.
And just as a reminder, this is the first page of the redevelopment plan. It's a little bit far for some of us, but that's the building, kind of looking at it going, you're looking towards Cleveland with your back kind of at Wayside on the corner there. I'm going to show a couple other slides from the plan. So where my hand is shaking over there, that's the site. This is, hard to see from there, but just so you know. And then that's just another view of the building. Again, I know I personally, and I don't live far away, I must have gone past it 100 times without noticing it once. It's kind of nondescript. What's interesting about it is it's one story at the front and it kind of goes up to a 2-story in the back. The front was kind of an add-on to the building at some point historically. That's just another view. And so we had really good representation. This is the site here. Here's the Wayside Road. Here's North Second. Here's Cleveland, and neighbors from across the street, neighbors from behind, directly kind of adjacent to the property were able to attend. So that was really great. So this is probably hard to read from there, and I apologize. I'm going to see if I can zoom in. Just give me a second. Sorry, it's a little bit of a delay. Sorry. Give me a sec. It's a little easier. So this is basically the survey for the property, and it's what they've updated in order to kind of present what they intend to do. And just to orient you, at the bottom is North Second, and to your left is Cleveland, and your right is Wayside. So the property, the footprint of the building isn't changing one iota. The height is the same, everything else is the same. So essentially what they've done is they've provided 4 parking spaces here, ADA compliant. That was an important thing with this project. And our redevelopment plan requires 1 space per unit. So what they are proposing is 4 units. They had looked at different configurations, but the finances just didn't work. And it was just much more involved, and this was something they thought they could support. In the back is where they'll be storing the toters for garbage, and they can bring them around. So right now they're stored here, so I think that will be an improvement. There's a little bit of a kind of a shed roof back here that is being removed as required by the plan. They're going to put an awning, but that's also where they'll have bicycle storage, covered bicycle storage for the occupants. And they'll also be providing bike storage in the units as well, if requested, through hooks and things like that. So trying to think about, multimodal to the extent we can, and being so close to New Brunswick and everything. And that's about it. And then just around this left kind of portion, there's some pavement they're actually pulling up. It is pretty much 100% impervious coverage as it is. They're pulling this up in part to reduce the impervious coverage, and there's also some of that pavement is not on their property. So they're also pulling back off where appropriate. There's a fence that does screen from the neighboring house, it belongs to the neighboring house. So there will be slightly less impervious pavement when they're done, but mostly kind of this cleanup along the perimeter and somewhat back here. There is a big retaining wall at the rear of the property that's actually on the neighbor's property. So they're really not proposing any change to the way stormwater drains from the site. And we haven't heard of any nuisance issues through the course of this project. And then I'm going to flip to you, and I'm not the best at explaining floor plans, but just to give you an idea, sorry, move that a little smaller so it fits. Ask AI assistant, leave me alone. But essentially on the first level, there's 3 units, and this is kind of what they're calling unit 1. They're 2-bedroom units, unit 2 and unit 3. Here, bedroom, bathroom, the usual things you'd have. There is on the 2nd floor, that's the basement, which is not going to be open to the tenants, but it is maintenance area for the owners of the building and to maintain the building. And then there's a unit on the top as well, and it'll access through some stairs in the building. So it's pretty straightforward. Again, 2 bedrooms. Here were some renderings. I should emphasize, as they did, these are highly conceptual. It's just to give a feeling for the colors and the palette and some of the materials they may look. This is not the windows where they're going to be, this is really more to give a feel. I could also say, they don't have a front lawn like that to play with.
And they don't expect a Ferrari in the back.
Yeah, they don't. What's challenging with landscaping is the front of the building is right on the sidewalk. So they've got probably a 3 to 4 foot strip to work with, but they are going to refresh it. They have those, and try to just dress it up to the best of their abilities. I think that might be my last image. So essentially, this is what they're doing. They're putting a residential use. It is an apartment building for family in a residential primarily neighborhood. And we think it fits and we'd like to recommend it move ahead. You know, at this point, it's up to the planning board to review from our perspective that they've answered the feasibility questions that we feel comfortable recommending to the council that we move it ahead.
Their target market, just to say, is they think that it's gonna be commuters, people who wanna take either a bike or a scooter to the train station to go to New York or Philly or something. They think it's gonna be young professionals is who they're anticipating. That's the market.
And one of the concerns that was raised by some of the neighbors, I wouldn't say all, was what about parking? Because the odds are there may not be just 4 cars related to 4 units. And it's our estimation, we didn't do a formal study, but I live in that area, I know there is on-street parking on Second, especially to accommodate guests that may come and go. There may be days, like if someone else is having a gathering or, you know, there's like in any neighborhood, there may be days where it's trickier than others, but we feel pretty confident it can accommodate, that they have what they need to make it work. So that I just wanted to reflect that one concern to come up.
I have a question. So with 4 units, would one of them be affordable or
They couldn't make it
That's
work.
right.
That was one of the we don't have the ability to do any kind of financial incentives on the site, at least not tax ones, because it's not in a redevelopment area. And when they looked at the numbers and the amount of construction costs went up a lot to try to fit the 5th unit or the 6th unit, depending on what they were looking at, 2 options. The parking was a constraint on that too, because we required 1 per unit. And as you saw, 4 just kind of fits. They could have demolished a portion of the building and gotten a 5th unit. But when they ran their numbers, they couldn't make it work. And our ordinance only requires it above 4 units. So we didn't impose that.
that's okay. We still need more housing.
That's kind of where I landed on it. I was
Yeah.
disappointed
Yeah.
for sure, but more housing, and it's a different kind of housing in this neighborhood. It'll be interesting to see. I tend to agree that somebody who has a lot of cars isn't gonna be necessarily attracted to that location. Need to have a parking spot right outside their house. That's not necessarily gonna be for that. So it'll be interesting to see. But it's, again, 4 units. The impact, I think, is manageable.
I love it. Let's move it.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation.
So
I would also agree.
we're putting the residents, so yeah, any other questions? But I appreciate they've been good to work with. And I should mention they're also from town.
They're local.
They're
Yeah, that's
local,
important.
just a kind of a partnership of a few members that have bought a couple of their properties in town and they saw this opportunity and jumped on it.
Was there any discussion about, I mean, I think it looks beautiful. I mean, that rendering was very.
Yeah,
good.
I just, it has no trees or neighbors or anything,
Right.
like, so I just don't want anybody to think it's gonna look just like that.
But I agree. I mean, that type of housing is really important. It's kind of that light up zone, kind of feel, and I think it really does serve a really good demographic. But was there any discussion about landscaping or we before?
Yeah, we did, I thought it'd probably be something they present more at the planning board. The plan does indicate they're supposed to refresh the front, and I'm sure we'll advise them to do native as best we can, but they really have very little area to work with.
Is there anything that they can do on the, as Phil George says, on the verge? Is that?
That's ours.
Well, right. I mean,
Yeah,
right,
so
that's-
I mean, it's again, very, very narrow. I mean, we could certainly look, I don't even recall if there's a street tree or if one could go there. We could certainly talk about that.
Cool.
I have to look.
Jason, you happen to recognize.
That's right.
Oh, Lucy, Lucy.
I don't know, was there any talk of any green design standards or environmentally friendly?
I mean,
construction?
again, it's
And
a
small project.
it's a small project. It was difficult. I mean, they're gonna use Energy Star, appliances and things like that, but we didn't really push that because it's we felt like some of the sustainability cred is the fact that they're using the building that they're in as opposed to knocking it all down and throwing it in the garbage. So I felt like that had
And dense
sustainability
housing is
points.
always a plus in that regard too. So
Yeah, but that's a fair point. I'm
I was
making that
just
too.
there's, there may just be things that aren't necessarily, that are like more or
I
less
didn't
cost
have any
neutral.
obvious ones to suggest, and nor did Chris, but, we can certainly encourage it.
Maybe like
green
electrical
roofs.
appliances that are
Mhm.
like similar cost, and it's just a matter of thinking to make that choice.
It's a good point.
But nothing to,
No green roofs.
Yeah, green roofs,
I don't know that building can support one. So, no.
It would be
Um,
cool in a smaller electrical.
I don't know. Well,
Great.
it's worth a discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I have no skin in that. I mean, we can certainly, maybe what we could do is give them some flexibility, but put it in the agreement that we want to see that they've made it steps toward things like this. And then that way they have to kind of,
Yeah.
that we can hold them to that a little bit. I don't see that being a huge lift. Good idea. Those are good ideas.
Terry, is that building isn't in use now, right?
It's
But it's
empty.
always open.
What do you mean,
Like it's
open?
open, you could just go in there. At
What?
one point, it wasn't, like, I didn't know if it
You
was.
tried to go in?
Well, they missed a FedEx package was delivered there by mistake. And so you can just go in there. I thought it was in use.
Sounds like you're having fun in buildings.
No.
I didn't know that. I mean, now that somebody, I don't know how long ago that happened.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah, they've owned the property, I don't think a year.
Oh, okay.
So I would hope they would have secured the property, but I can certainly mention that.
Yeah, okay.
I have not heard any, and there are a lot of neighbors who have very close eyes on the place and they didn't bring it up in our meeting. There was a time where it was for sale where I could see maybe that the realtor didn't secure the place or something like
Mhm.
that. That
Yeah, it
could
was
have
that.
happened. But okay, cool, thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, I'm happy that they,
And New Jersey Film Ready. Now, Terry.
I'll just jump in. I mean, we did discuss this at the last economic development meeting, but essentially we're pursuing film ready certification. The state of New Jersey has a film ready commission to support basically the industry that they're trying to build in New Jersey. And one of the things towns can do is make themselves basically more friendly and ready to go should a film crew need a set that looks like Highland Park in some way, shape, or form, or a building. So there are some steps we have to take. The first, and I'm cheating by looking at the list here, is how to become a film-ready community workshop, which Rituja has taken. Chief Abrams went to one that was specific to law enforcement. So we've now met that criteria. We're going to have to designate a film-ready liaison who will probably be, it's a staff person, but probably myself or Rituja. It's kind of like the lead person on it from a staff perspective. And then we have to adopt a formal permit process. And the best way to do that is by an ordinance. You don't have to do an ordinance, but that seems to be standard practice. It also allows you the benefit of fees. You can establish, you can have permit fees to do. So that's a small revenue stream. But I should point out that one of the major perks of this program is not just the fees that the municipality can make for either permitting or use of its own facilities, but it's the kind of spin-off benefits to the community when a crew comes in town and buys,
There's
50
mo-
cups of coffee from Dunkin' and Penstock, buys their catering from Murray, what have you.
There's 100 at a regular film shoot, there's at least 150 people who need to be fed. And the quickest way to make that happen is to go to someplace in town and get 150 people fed. And that's an enormous benefit for, any of our restaurants. And
Right.
That's a big deal.
And in addition, they want to know any people who are in your community that might have skills that work well for crews, like filming, videographers, photographers, all that stuff. So
Bill George can build a set. I know.
yeah, exactly. They want to know because they don't want to, the less schlepping they have to do that is better. And basically, we would do an ordinance that would basically enable the permitting process, set the parameters, also for when you need like police approval and hours of operation, things like that. Thankfully, the state actually did do a model ordinance, unlike with some other of their initiatives in the last few years that have been complicated for towns. And in this case, it's pretty straightforward. We have a draft. We're going to share it with SAPNA because I know you've worked with your communities and some other towns to adopt similar ordinances, especially to see, we want to be competitive with our fees, you know, for what we've got. Well, what we will also get to do, and this is kind of the fun brainstorm part, is upload locations, either municipally controlled locations that we think would be good potential sets. So this room that we're sitting in, I've actually been approached before about, I need a courtroom and I need it, you know, in this part of there. And so even our modest, you know, not every place has to be fancy, like, you know, they need all kinds of film sets. So we would put this up and then we'd have a photo and, you know, and then it enables that crew to decide if there's even a there before they waste their time, my time, their time. You know, we'd have our room occupancies, all that stuff, all up there ready to go. So we can have as many locations as we want, but you know, they want us to have at least 10, you know, to kind of fill out the thing. So, you know, clearly.
If you have ideas about
Yeah,
where, about this, I
ideas
mean,
of-
obviously the high schools, I think the high school is gonna be.
I think we got
right
high
there.
school, the auditorium in the high school, the
Yeah.
front of the high
The front of the
school.
high school, the
It's a
auditorium.
classic high school want. I
Yeah,
mean, it really,
is.
um,
It's owl.
the
It's like
owls,
The Doughboy.
the
Everyone needs a
doughboy,
good monument.
you know, there's a lot
White
of.
Rose.
Wait, Rose, I
yeah,
mean, we had
yeah.
a potential interest in Park Pub that found us
Right.
one time, so the flip side is we can think about municipal and public properties, but also private properties that we can go and encourage them, we can't do it for them, but if we know of a location that has unique architecture, unique features and spaces, we can encourage them to put their sites in there and they can make money, which is kind of nice.
We should also have, to the catering aspect, we should also like go out to the restaurants and say, you have a space, but also give them your menu, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And one of the other steps is in addition to the locations, is local resources. And what that means are production resources, but that includes catering, food trucks, restaurants, lodging, construction supplies, car rentals, office supplies, you know, security services, you know, you name it. If we have those kind of businesses in our town or people who run those businesses who may live in our town, you know, we could encourage them to submit and be considered. So I think it shows I'm really pleasantly surprised with how put together this program is from the state and how easy it is to kind of follow the steps. So my next step, I think we're at a point where Rituja and I have kind of, I think got the draft is took the model and kind of adapted it. I need SAPNA's review of it. And we're waiting on, we have some feedback from the police department. So we might need your help on how to incorporate some of their thoughts. But hopefully by the time I'm back from vacation, we could have a draft to circulate with an eye toward introduction at the May 6th meeting. That's kind of the timeline I'm hoping for. So you'll have plenty of time to look at the draft before it gets to there. But it's kind of, to me, a no-brainer program. And even just on their own, in the job, I've gotten calls for sets myself at least 3 times doing nothing, you know? So if we do a little proactivity, I think we might be able to generate some interest. And the mayor, and it's too bad she's not here because she's met with mayors from towns that have done really well with this program. Granted, they're like the ones with like Civil War battlefield type properties and stuff like that's what I imagine anyway. But still, it's, you know, they gotta have, everybody's a set, you know, it doesn't, there's no limit.
When I was thinking about this the other day, and I forgot to mention it to you, is I think one of the things also in our packet, and this is done, assuming we're all on board with this, staging areas, because one of the things they need is trailers and.
Yeah, that is a challenge.
That's
for
gonna be a
us.
challenge for us, is that we need to, and, you know, we do have some possibilities over on, you know, Madison and Fourth or something like that, but we should.
Thereabouts.
Somewhere.
Yeah, well, we have that, I mean, but also the county, but then the county is busy, the parks are busy, so
Yeah.
taking over their parking lot, you know,
Right, but-
so that's gonna be the
That's
logistics
gonna
for
be
the
biggest
trailers
challenge.
is not
Trailer
nothing.
challenge is where we put those. But I'd rather, you know, let's jump off that bridge when we get to the break.
They do it in New York City.
They figure it
They
out.
No,
figure it
they
out.
figure it
They
out.
do.
So
They
they're
do.
like right in the.
And I do, there are areas, but we just have to be creative about it, and that, you know, that's part of the course. So just wanted to let you guys know, this is something we've been working on. Seems like, you know, there's a way forward, and hopefully by May, we can adopt by the end of May, and then, you know, we've already started working on some of the locations, but we can certainly send an email around just saying, give us your ideas, or teacher may do a Google sheet or something, so you can kind of brainstorm that way. Because I don't think there really are no bad ideas, because I
If-
couldn't believe it when they wanted Park Pub. I was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, well, that's the kind of place we were looking for, you know? So it really, you know, it could be
Really?
anything.
We had to think about doing a Facebook post to have people to send in ideas for, you know, just like ahead of time.
Especially to kind of promote it, like,
Promote
let us
it,
know what
like,
you
for-
think,
like,
and then
we're-
do a
we're
Google
going-
form or something.
Right, like,
Mhm.
we're going after this, and so give us your ideas, give us your
Sure.
thoughts, or give us your talents.
Certainly, especially once we've got it set up, because then also if that catches the eye of some of these vendors, and they would know how, then they could go in and set up. They can set up in the system too. No, I like that idea. Sure.
So yeah, I mean, the river notwithstanding,
Mhm.
the most beautiful views of the Morris and Donald Goodkind bridges that you can find in New
That's a really
Jersey.
good thought.
Uh,
No, but the river is
river is-
an amenity,
yeah, yeah.
and it's unusual.
Yeah, it really is.
Mhm.
And I mean, I think you know, even the aerial views, I mean, are really stunning here. We get very used to it, but it really
Yeah.
is. It's quite beautiful.
Mhm.
So just to be clear, in the ordinance, so we would be ordinancing the permitting and fee structure. That's okay.
So that's
That
part
was
of what you'll get a chance to look at. So we, you know, for example, you know, we look, they range, and like I need advice from our insurance carrier about, you know, proof of insurance for filming in borough properties. So, you know what I mean? Like there's certain stuff that's just, we need advice on. But then, you know, and hours of operation, which we were gonna kind of use what we currently do for other things, kind of as a starting point. But, you know, a basic filming permit in the sample was $100. East Brunswick's has a kind of stay, you know, 100 to 500, probably depends on staging, you know, the nature of the permit. Other ones were 150. So we wanted to see, kind of do a little more surveying, because we don't want to, I think the whole point of this program from the state's perspective is they don't want to have it be like this all over the state. Like it's kind of got a consistent feel. So it's pretty easy to navigate, you know, from place to place without it being a big rigmarole. And then the fees for using municipal properties, we have to figure that out and base that on what, you know, we have to be realistic about the nature of our spaces, and also how inconvenient, because if they were going to be in here for a week, that can displace a lot of activity, you know, and so you got to make it worth your while to some extent as well. Because that's a challenge too.
Cool.
So yeah, you'll have a chance to weigh in on all that stuff, but we're gonna try to follow, you know, kind of best practices that have already sprung up from other towns, so that we're kind of attractive to these groups. At least that's what we're thinking.
Cool.
Cool.
Super cool.
Any more questions? All right, and then Woodbridge Avenue, upcoming improvements.
Yes, I did put some slides. Matt, this was your idea, so I should let you see, to show some slides of, I put together just to share, because through NPP, hold on one second. We have been slowly but surely, we're chipping away at stuff to do. And we just didn't want to get too far out there without sharing some of the fun. Alrighty. Let's see if it worked. There we go. And let me just minimize some of this stuff on my end. So basically, we're looking at banners, some new planters on Woodbridge Avenue, and a sidewalk cleanup that's actually underway this week. They're power washing the curbs and the sidewalks along the avenue there. So it's a little bit of an experiment. So hopefully we get some good results. So the banner project, just to illustrate, on your left side are what's on Main Street now. You've got like a long narrow banner that's on the sidewalk side, skinnier one, and then a wider one on the street side. And they're in the process, I should mention, and of redoing their banners and seeking funding to do that. So we wanted to try to see if we could bring whatever we do on Woodbridge, which if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see different shaped banner. And because of the nature of the wooden poles and the heights of our poles, we can't convert to these kinds of banners because what you can't see here, and on the next slide is, theirs are 7 feet high. Okay, they're much bigger lengthwise and skinnier widthwise. So this is the relook that Main Street is working with. So they're taking that kind of welcome, and what they are now, and unfortunately you can't really see it, is there's some design work, but then it basically says welcome in a bunch of different languages. And then, so we thought, let's try to, we want Woodbridge to have its own vibe, but it would be nice for them to speak to each other so they feel like we're all one town. So one of our challenges also you can see is like where the snowflakes are and the banners is an ongoing problem. So Main Street's new concept is, and Geza is from the design committee, has been the lead on this. I'm really impressed with a lot of thought went into this. What they discovered was the banners fade a lot. So they wanted to go with white lettering and darker backgrounds so that we kind of maintain a nice contrast. It'll have a little more impact. And if you look at even this, I know it's a faded picture, you can see how faded these are. And they replaced them not that long ago. So they wanted to kind of bump them up. And in the bottom, and you can't see it, it has the language of origin in small print underneath each one. And so on the inside where the sidewalk is will be the long skinny Highland Park. And then these are the various forms of welcome that they've used, and it's quite an array. So taking that as inspiration, we did work with a design company that had worked on the original, but then original streetscape stuff back in the day. But then we met with Main Street, and Geza, in like a matter of 24 hours, came up with Woodbridge Avenue banners using the same design. These are still a work in progress, but we were really excited. I actually meant to bring I printed one of the welcome one out. It looks actually more normal big than it does small on the screen. This doesn't reflect, we'll probably need to add a little more margin around this because of the brackets and the grommets and stuff like that. This was a proof of concept and I actually think that he did a great job. And essentially, he's taken the feel of the Woodbridge, the Main Street banners and translated them into the, I guess, 3x2 size that we have to work with on Woodbridge Avenue. And I think it's going to be a huge impact. Like when you look at this kind of, it's faded, it's been there, done that. And this kind of really sings to me. I really like it. And this was Rituja's attempt at a Photoshop. Again, you can see we need a little more margins, but I think it'll look really cute. And every other fourth will be a welcome in English, just so you know, so that it'll be kind of varied. But fun fact was, currently downtown, most of them you don't know it says welcome on it, and I think your mind just converts it. And then just so you get a sense for how many, these are all the poles that we've got that will be dressing up. So we are going to we're identifying vendors, and we are going to, what are you going to do? We need to get the exact design specs so that Geza can adapt his kind of concept to the physical dimensions that are required by the manufacturer, get some pricing, but we're looking to do that the next couple of months, get those up. And I think that's all I have on banners. Yep. So that's the banners. The other updates are we are going to be putting out benches and receptacles, and these are purchased and waiting to go out. One of the challenges that some of the places need concrete, our bane of our life, is to mount this, Matt, sorry. You think it'd be easy, but it is. But these are, we have these and they'll be going out, and we're just mapped out where they're gonna go. And we're also buying replacement planters. I don't have a picture of that.
These replace the stone receptacles?
These are gonna, yes, all those, and some of them are blue
Yeah.
painted corrugated, I don't know
Right,
what.
there's no rhyme or
There's
reason.
no rhyme or reason. So
Yeah.
we have plenty of receptacles and they'll be going up the avenue. These will also be easier for the DPW folks to change out, to just take the lid off, dump it. And so it's gonna look, and Main Street helped us select these, so we're trying to coordinate we're not trying to reproduce the Main Street, but we're trying to be kind of same level.
Speak to it.
And we're also, the pebblier, they're actually concrete planters. We're gonna swap those out with new fiberglass ones that we met with Marcia, who's also on Shade Tree.
Yeah.
And we're excited to try a new material. It's fiberglass, but they're being used, I forget what town. I mean, they've had them in place for 10 years and they're holding up really well. And they actually have a watering reservoir. So we're actually going to use it as a little experiment to see if they require less watering as a result, because I know that's an ongoing issue.
Wow.
So they're pretty cool. I'm sorry, I don't have a picture.
And if they work. it could
And
be
they do
cost-saving.
require
God,
special
yeah.
dirt. But we were gonna have to buy more dirt anyway, and it wasn't that much more to buy the special dirt.
Right.
And that way, there's a reservoir, and so they just have to fill the reservoir, and then they know they're done. And so the town we talked to said it's a noticeable difference between the amount of watering you have to do and the ones with these.
Yeah.
And they've had them for 10 years, because one of our concerns was, does the wick stop working after, 2 years and you're back to a regular old planter? So we're just really excited to bring, I mean, it's been a long time coming, some of those improvements. Again, it's just, this was more of a show and tell, Matt. I don't know if you have anything else on that.
No, it's just, it's been fun with the MPP committee and with Main Street and Gaza and all of those putting this stuff together. It sort of feels like there's a nice flow going from, Raritan up to Woodbridge, and that's pretty cool. It's never happened before, so pretty exciting.
Quick question. Are we taking any design feedback or?
How about you do that offside?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's
Absolutely.
it's super
There's
exciting.
time. We haven't, he
Yeah.
literally turned that around. We had a meeting and he turned that around in 24 hours. I was like, oh my God.
No, it's brilliant.
And
It's
so
awesome.
I think we have a workable, but certainly there's room for, tweaks, and we need to figure out what I think it needs a little more margin, so it pops a little more and stuff like that. But I think whatever we do is gonna pop, because what's there is pretty faded. So anyway.
Exciting.
Are the planters gonna be smaller than the ones that we have right now? Because those are really big. They took up a lot of space.
No, they're gonna be similar.
They're similar?
But they're square, they're not gonna be
Okay.
round, and they're gonna be, for now, we're just replacing what's there, because we didn't wanna overwhelm the tree plant, the planting program and the watering program. So we thought, let's try by swapping these out first. And we may move them around, because they kind of shifted over time, so they may move to different blocks, but on Woodbridge, I guess I'm not aware of any major conflicts where we have planters, and we want it to have the impact, and if you make them too small, they don't have, so but we may, as a second phase, downtown, we have like the big ones and the smaller ones, so we may
Oh, yeah.
alternate.
Okay.
That's something we
ones that are
talked about,
shorter.
but for now, we're just doing like for like, and then with the understanding that now that they don't weigh 10,000 pounds, I mean, they're not nothing when they're full of dirt,
Yeah.
but compared to the concrete ones, they're
Yeah.
much lighter, which is partially why they were so much less expensive, because shipping was a fraction of the shipping of a concrete planter. So they're very attractive, and I think, but yeah, we'll have to figure out exact placements, and the long run, it's gonna be a budget issue, because we won't have MPP forever. We wanna make sure whatever we put out, we can keep looking nice, because the work that Main Street does, right now, we're reimbursing them for the Woodbridge Ave portions. So we'll have to make sure that we have a plan for maintaining those, for all of the planters in the long run. But right now, we're just swapping out.
Do we,
Okay.
do we manage the banners right now, or is that the county?
There are banners, they're the county's poles, and I've reached out to them. Well, they're actually PSCG's pole, it's the county's roadway. So make it more complicated. And we did check with the county what the height requirements are, which is one of the reasons we can't go with a longer banner, because then we're getting too close to, I think it's 15 feet off the curb or something like that. And these are much shorter poles than the Main Street poles.
Mhm.
but the county's aware and PSCNG doesn't care because they already have the back. It's as long as we're using the same brackets, they don't care. Just swap them out.
Do you want to, the only other thing to mention, I think that's interesting about the Woodbridge right now is that the MPP this year also has facade grants for houses in the district, right? So there's a grant program for people who want to fix up the outside of their house and they're not massive grants, so it's not like replacing the front of your house. But if you have, like a overhanging porch and it's falling down or something like that.
Porch steps. I
Porch
mean,
steps,
that's, that can
so-
be
Yeah.
$5,000 right
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
And it's basically, we can give, 100% grants out to houses in the district.
So it's a nice opportunity to sort of not just focus right on Woodbridge Avenue, but sort of off Woodbridge Avenue to sort of help folks in that neighborhood too. So it's another improvement.
Yeah. And we're continuing the facade program as
Right,
well for
with business.
commercial businesses as well.
It's exciting to expand it to residences. It's kind of cool.
Do they have to live on Woodbridge?
It's not on Woodbridge. It's so MPP goes,
Oh, so
it's
it's
a
where
little off.
that,
It-
okay.
I mean, it goes a little
Ish,
back.
A block back.
A block back. It doesn't,
Mhm.
it doesn't go like all the way down to the
Yeah.
park. It's not that big a district. It's literally like just surrounding
Mhm.
Woodbridge Avenue. So it's a little bit off. So it's those are the ones in the district.
It was primarily focused on commercial districts, but recognizing that we have housing in the mix in that area, it made sense to do a housing program as well. I mean, a facade program for houses. as well.
Is it a similar application process? That's the retail storefronts? Yeah.
It similar, but it's not a matching, like in the facade grants tend to be a matching program where they put up some and then we put up some. These are just grants. And so
Right.
it's a little bit different and we're not doing things like, we're not asking for financial, we're not asking for tax returns or anything like that. And so it's not sort of means tested or something like that. So that we thought that might be a little onerous on people to.
Just one little thing that I've noticed in that neighborhood is that in some spots, like the curbs and sidewalks and like the aprons and driveways are not in best shape. I wonder if there's some of that. green
That would be
funding
eligible.
could be-
Yeah.
Oh, that would be eligible.
Yeah.
That might be a good thing to encourage because
Yeah.
like
Sidewalk,
all these little
sidewalks,
details.
driveway
Sidewalks,
aprons, all that
driveways,
would be
yeah, all
eligible.
of that.
Wow.
Yeah, we might want to just try to sell that because we're spiffing it up in a lot of different ways, but then there's like, certain parts that just kind of look a little
Right.
more.
Good point.
Any other? That's it?
Oh, sounds good.
Okay. That's the end of our discussion. Public comment. Now it's time for public comment. 21 minutes total, 3 minutes per speaker. Comments from members of the public attending the meeting in person will be heard first, followed by members of the public attending the meeting via Zoom. Terry, do we have any?
I see one person on Zoom. I do not have a hand up.
Seeing no one further, may I have a motion to close public participation?
Second.
A roll call.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Hirsch,
Yes.
Council President Kim Cho Han,
Yes.
Councilmember Pistonik,
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas.
Yes.
And now, executive session. May I have a motion to adopt or reject 4-225-115 executive session redeveloper negotiations 308 Raritan Avenue?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Hirsch.
Yes.
Council President Kim Cho Han,
Yes.
Councilmember Pistonik,
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas.
Yes.
Okay, and now adjournment. I thought you were about to get up.
Oh.
May I have a motion to adjourn and go into executive session?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Note that we will not be returning to open session this evening. And that's a lie.
You did great. You did
I know,
great.
right?
Thank you.
Fantastic.